What does Freeman mean to me? It means actually living it, kind of walking the walk, or whatever you call it. I got into the concept in sort of late 2008 because I got fed up of kind of going on protest marches in London and against the war in Iraq and Afghanistan and all the rest of it, and nothing ever changing. So when I came across this Freeman thing, I didn't really believe it, but I thought it might be if it checked out, it might be a good way of actually, you know, putting up some kind of rebellion or resistance against what's going on, you know. And then I probably got bogged down in a lot of the detail, you know, of the law and statutes and, you know, internet research and reading loads of stuff. And after about 2 years, I mean, I'd got free of a lot of things in my life physically, and my old job and my house and lots of, you know, material things. But I wasn't really free because I was spending all my time, you know, researching Freeman stuff. The first guy who inspired me was a guy called Robert Arthur Menard in Canada, and he's made a lot of movies which you can get online about how all this works. He was the first guy I think I came across who covered what's called a notice of understanding and intent and claim of right. So that's what I use. I took his sort of basis for that and then added my own stuff to it, because I think that's important. You know, if you're going to send a notice, first you need to make sure you understand all the terms that are used in it. You know, and you may think they're in English, but there is a language called legalese. If you look up in the English dictionary the term legalese, you'll see it says there the language that legal documents are written in. So it's actually a language. So it's like if you want to translate from English to legalese, you need a law dictionary. So this notice of understanding, intent and claim of right that's pretty much what it is. You give notice that this is the situation as I understand it, bump bump bump, and therefore I intend to do this, and I claim my right to do this under whatever, you know, aspect of the law, or natural law, moral law, common law, whatever it is, you know, that you're claiming it under, and you give whoever you're sending it to a reasonable notice period in which to reply, and tell them that if they don't reply in some way within that time, that you'll take that to mean that they agree with you, and then it's up to them to respond. The bit I also added into mine was I told them they had to write back to me, my human self, you know, not my legal fiction. I got stopped by a cop called Phil one Sunday, and well, that's actually a line in a song I wrote about it called "No Tax for War," and you can get that on the website. But you know, this guy stopped me because he didn't see any tax on the car, and I went through the whole thing explaining about the war and the fact that if you pay tax, you're actually breaking a statute law called the International Criminal Court Act 2000, and all of that stuff. You know, and this guy, having done his sort of bit, his job, he just sort of said, "Oh, good on you, mate." You know, he said, "I'm sick of being a copper, to be honest." You know, he said, "I got into this to solve crime and help people, and all I do is go around writing out tickets and, you know, chasing people for minor misdemeanors and sending in paperwork and stuff." You know, and he was taking early retirement because he'd had enough. You know, there's a guide on my website about how to deal with bailiffs as well, so you can learn from a bit of mine and other people's experience. But it's the same thing when I had a bailiff come round. You know, they sort of march in and sort of, you know, intimidate you. And I mean, at the time I had this jetty and my houseboat here, and the guy came right down the jetty and onto the houseboat, and I said to him, "Well, if you want to talk to me, first thing you got to do is move behind this line here where my gate is." You know, I didn't actually have a gate, I just had a gate post, a frame. But I said, unless you stand the other side of that frame, you know, you'll be on private property, and I'm not going to talk to you. So So getting this big 6'4" burly bailiff to eventually move back behind behind this gate, you know, before he spoke to him, you can have some fun with that, you know. I mean, if you want to really understand this, check out Money As Debt, which is a movie you can get online. Paul Grignon, I think his name is. Really good explanation of that whole thing. But so, you know, the first thing to realise is money isn't real, and it's not backed by anything. It has no tangible value. The whole euro thing is just a scam to get countries indebted and beholden to that system. And then they'll start saying things like, you know, they're already starting to say it. They're saying things like, you know, to stop this happening again, so this never happens again, you know, we need more centralised control. We need a common monetary policy across the whole of Europe. So you're losing more control from separate areas to a central authority, you know. And that never works, you know, and ultimately, you know, it's on its way to one world government and one currency and all of that, and sort of new world order, you know. So I think they engineer these so-called crises, you know, to scare everyone. Well, there is, yeah. There's ways of redemption through the Freeman process, because basically these so-called debts, they're all created out of thin air, and the claim, the obligation, if you like, to repay them is with your person. It's not with you as a human. You know, it's with your legal entity, which is your capitalized, titled, usually capitalized, but titled legal fiction. You know, which is your name created by the registration of your birth. So that's the entity that's obliged, that's got the deal, if you like. But all the contracts that support these so-called debts are all invalid under any kind of common law or any kind of contract law, because these contracts don't meet the criteria of a valid contract. So if on behalf of your person you send a notice to this whoever's claiming against you to repay this thing, I mean, this is what I found anyway. If you ask them to prove the claim, they can't actually prove it. So you know what I did was say, well, if you can prove this claim, I'll repay whatever's owing on behalf of this entity, you know. But they never could, so I didn't pay it back. I had to send 3 notices in the end to the DVLA. I sent my notice, and she wrote back saying, you know, quite a long letter, but there was just one line in this letter that said, I interpret your notice to mean this, you know, and it was just lost in all the type, you know, I interpret your notice, blah 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 blah, and you could easily just skip over that and get into what she said, you know. But that's the important line, was I interpret your notice to mean. So even though I'd already claimed what's called estoppel, so I'd sent a notice to the DVLA saying I'm going to deregister my car, and this is why it works, and if you don't reply, I assume you agree. They wrote back saying, you know, I had to abide by statutory law, and they didn't answer any of the points I'd raised. So because they hadn't answered any of the points I raised, I sent them an estoppel notice saying because you haven't answered any of the claims of right or anything, or challenged any of my understandings, you haven't replied properly to the notice. So I claim estoppel. Then she's saying, I interpret your notice to mean, you know. So I've already claimed estoppel. You could think, well, I don't need to do anything now. But if the last bit of paper on file says, you know, we interpret your notice to mean, and you haven't challenged it, that's what goes down as being interpreted to mean. So I had to reply to that, and I went through every point she raised and told her why I thought she'd misinterpreted it and what I actually meant again, and restated it and sent that back. So that's now the last bit of paper on file, and I never heard back from them again. and they've never said any more things, you know, or any more claims or documents or anything about the road tax at all.